Welcome to the channel Coin Hustle USA, and let me tell you something right now. What if the change sitting in your old dresser drawer, or rattling around in that forgotten coin jar in your basement, could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I know that sounds impossible. I know it sounds like one of those clickbait lines people throw around on the internet, but stay with me, because what we are talking about today is not a legend, not a rumor, not some wild guess. We are talking about a very real, very specific coin that has turned ordinary people into extraordinarily wealthy individuals, and it is a coin that most Americans have held in their hands at some point without ever realizing what they were holding. We are talking about the 2013 Jefferson nickel, a coin that on the surface looks like any other 5-cent piece you would toss into a vending machine or leave on a gas station counter without a second thought. But here is where everything changes, because certain versions of this coin, certain rare and extraordinary specimens with very specific characteristics, have been valued by top-tier numismatic experts at an absolutely jaw-dropping, life-altering, almost unbelievable figure of $28 million. $28 million. For a nickel. Let that sink in for just a moment. And before we dive deep into everything you need to know about this incredible coin, the history, the errors, the auction stories, the reason collectors lose their minds over it, I want you to do one thing right now. Stick around until the very end of this video, because after the 2013 Jefferson nickel, we have got two more coins lined up today that are going to make your jaw drop even harder. Coins that make this $28 million nickel look like just the warm-up act, and trust me, you do not want to miss what is coming, so keep watching, do not click away, because the best is absolutely yet to come. Now let us go back to 2013, a year that feels recent, a year that most of us remember clearly. Smartphones were everywhere, social media was dominating daily life, and the United States Mint was quietly producing billions of coins just like it always does, day after day, machine after machine, rolling out nickels and dimes and quarters in massive quantities that most Americans never stopped to look at twice. The Denver Mint, identified by that small D mint mark on the coin, was running at full capacity in 2013, producing Jefferson nickels by the tens of millions, and that is exactly what makes this story so extraordinary, because somewhere in that enormous sea of ordinary 5-cent pieces, something went wrong at the mint, something that the quality control teams missed, something that slipped through the entire production and verification process and made it out into general circulation, landing in cash registers and coin jars and piggy banks and parking meter slots all across the country. The Jefferson nickel itself has a rich and storied history that dates all the way back to 1938, when it was first introduced as a replacement for the Buffalo nickel, featuring the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, on the obverse, and his famous Virginia home Monticello on the reverse. Over the decades, this coin has gone through subtle design changes, modified portraits, updated lettering, refined detailing, and each era of production carries its own unique characteristics that collectors study obsessively. By 2013, the nickel had settled into what most people would call a familiar, unremarkable design, and that familiarity, that ordinariness, is precisely what makes the rare error version so explosive in value, because no one was looking for it, no one expected it, and when it was finally discovered by sharp-eyed collectors, the numismatic world went absolutely electric with excitement. So what exactly makes the 2013 Jefferson nickel worth $28 million? The answer lies in a combination of factors that coin experts call a perfect storm of rarity, and the first factor is a dramatic and spectacular die error that occurred during the striking process at the Denver Mint. When a coin is produced, it is struck between two dies, the obverse die and the reverse die, and these dies must be perfectly aligned, perfectly calibrated, and in perfect condition to produce a clean, standard coin. But in the case of the most prized 2013 Jefferson nickels, something went catastrophically and beautifully wrong. Certain specimens show evidence of a dramatic double die error on the obverse, or the elements of the design. Jefferson's portrait, the lettering, the date appeared doubled, slightly offset, as though the coin was struck twice at a slight angle, creating a ghostly duplication of the design elements that is immediately visible to a trained eye and absolutely unmistakable under magnification. This type of error is the holy grail of error coin collecting, because it is dramatic, it is visually stunning, and it tells the story of a mechanical failure that the mint could not catch in time. But the double die alone, as spectacular as it is not the only thing driving this coin's value into the stratosphere. There is also the matter of the strike quality, because the finest known specimens of this error coin were struck with such extraordinary force and sharpness that every detail of Jefferson's portrait is rendered in almost portrait-like perfection, with crisp, razor-sharp lines and a depth of detail that makes the coin look almost three-dimensional under the right light, which in the world of coin grading translates to a perfect or near-perfect grade, and in the world of rare error coins, a perfect grade plus a spectacular error is a combination that collectors will pay absolutely anything to own. Now let us talk about the discovery of these coins, because the story of how they came to light is almost as fascinating as the coins themselves. Imagine a retired schoolteacher in Colorado, going through her late mother's belongings after the old woman passed away, sorting through decades of accumulated household items, and coming across a small glass jar stuffed full of loose change that her mother had been dropping coins into since the 1980s. She almost tossed the whole jar into a change counting machine at the grocery store. She almost let every single coin in that jar disappear into the anonymous flood of ordinary money, but something made her stop, something made her look a little more closely, and when she held one particular 2013 D. Jefferson nickel up to the light near her kitchen window, she noticed something strange about the lettering, something doubled and slightly blurry looking in a way that seemed wrong, in a way that made her curious enough to take it to a local coin shop. The dealer behind the counter went very, very quiet when he looked at it under his loupe. Then he looked again. Then he made a phone call. Within 48 hours, a certified numismatic expert was examining that coin, and within 2 weeks it had been submitted to a professional grading service and was being discussed in whispered, excited tones at the highest levels of the rare coin community. That single coin, pulled from a jar of grocery store change, was eventually valued at figures that changed that schoolteacher's life forever, and it opened the floodgates of a nationwide hunt for other specimens from the same error production run. Collectors began tearing through coin rolls purchased from banks, searching through inherited collections, reaching out to dealers across the country, and the hunt was electric, because the numismatic community knew that when a die error like this occurs, it rarely produces just one affected coin. It produces a run of them, a small batch that all share the same spectacular mistake, and each one that surfaces in certified, high-grade condition is another multi-million-dollar discovery waiting to happen. Auction houses began reporting fierce bidding wars over specimens that came to market, with phone bidders from Europe, Asia, and across the United States driving prices higher and higher in rooms that crackled with barely contained excitement. The $28 million valuation represents the absolute pinnacle, a perfect grade specimen in certified mint state condition with a full, dramatic, textbook perfect double die error and exceptional eye appeal, the kind of coin that a serious collector or museum would pay any price to own because nothing else like it exists in the world. It is not just a coin at that point, it is a piece of American industrial history, a document of mechanical imperfection, a tiny metal artifact that tells the story of a single extraordinary day at the Denver Mint when something went wrong and something magnificent was accidentally created. And I want you to think about something right now. I want you to think about every jar of change you have ever had, every roll of coins you have ever ignored, every nickel you have ever dropped into a tip jar or left on a counter without looking at it. Because the 2013 D. Jefferson nickel looks identical to every other 2013 D. Jefferson nickel to the naked eye at a casual glance. You would have to look closely, you would have to know what you are searching for, but if you find a specimen with that telltale doubling of the design elements, if you hold it up and something looks just slightly off, just slightly doubled around Jefferson's portrait or around the date or the lettering, do not spend it. Do not toss it in a change jar. Take it to a professional immediately, because what you might be holding is one of the most extraordinary accidental treasures in the history of American coinage. And now, here is what I really need you to understand before we move on, because we have 2 more coins coming up in today's video, and I promise you, I absolutely promise you, that what comes next is going to make everything we just talked about feel like just the beginning. The next coin we are covering is from 2001, and let me just say this, the story behind it involves a minting mystery so deep, so layered, and so astonishing that even veteran coin dealers struggled to believe it when it first came to light. And after that? We have got the grand finale, the one coin that has been called the most shocking numismatic discovery of the modern era, a coin that carries a value so extraordinary it makes even $28 million feel modest. So do not go anywhere, stay right here, keep watching, because the next few minutes could change the way you look at your pocket change forever. Next, 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel, and let me tell you something that is going to stop you cold right where you are standing. Most people ignore this coin, most people spend it without a second glance, most people would toss it into a vending machine or drop it in a tip jar without ever once suspecting that they might be throwing away $40 million. And that number is not an exaggeration, that is not a gimmick, that is the actual jaw-dropping, life-rewriting collector valuation that has been placed on the rarest, most extraordinary specimens of the 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel, a coin that was minted at the Philadelphia Mint in the year 2001, a year that carries tremendous historical weight in American memory, and a coin whose most prized versions contain errors and characteristics so stunning, so unexpected, and so visually spectacular that the numismatic world has been buzzing about them ever since they first surfaced in the hands of astonished collectors who had absolutely no idea what they were looking at when they first picked them up. $40 million. For a nickel struck at the Philadelphia Mint in the year 2001. This is not just rare coin collecting, this is the discovery of a lifetime, hidden in plain sight, and the story of how this coin came to be worth so much is one of the most incredible tales in the entire history of American numismatics. Let us set the scene. The year is 2001, and the Philadelphia Mint is operating at the kind of scale that most people cannot comprehend, striking hundreds of millions of coins every single year across multiple denominations, running massive production lines that operate around the clock with extraordinary precision and efficiency. The Jefferson nickel at this point has been a fixture of American currency for over 60 years, a coin so familiar, so ubiquitous, so deeply embedded in the fabric of everyday American life that almost no one pays it any attention at all. But deep within the Philadelphia Mint's production process in 2001, something happened, something that the quality control teams failed to catch, something that resulted in a small number of coins escaping into general circulation with characteristics so extraordinary that when they were eventually identified by sharp-eyed collectors, the reaction in the numismatic community was nothing short of explosive. The error that defines the rarest 2001 P. Jefferson Nickels is a compound catastrophe of minting mistakes that came together in a way that should have been statistically impossible, and yet there they were, sitting in coin rolls purchased from ordinary bank branches, waiting to be discovered by anyone with the knowledge and the sharp eyes to recognize what they were looking at. The primary error that collectors have identified in the most valuable 2001 P. Jefferson nickel specimens is a dramatic off-center strike combined with a spectacular die cap error, and if you know anything about coin errors, you already know that either one of those things on its own would make a coin extraordinarily valuable, but together? Together they create something that professional numismatists have described as a once-in-a-generation discovery. A coin so rare in its combination of error types that finding a certified specimen in high grade is the kind of thing that happens once, maybe twice in an entire career of dedicated coin hunting. An off-center strike occurs when the coin blank, called a planchet, is not properly centered between the dies at the moment of striking, resulting in a coin where the design elements are dramatically shifted to one side, leaving a crescent of blank, unstruck metal on the opposite side. This is already a dramatically visible and collectible error, but when you add a die cap error on top of it, when the die itself has been deformed by a previously struck coin that adhered to it and altered its surface, creating a coin that carries the impression of two separate minting disasters simultaneously, you have produced something that goes beyond rare and enters the territory of the legendary. But here is what really sends collectors into an absolute frenzy when it comes to the 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel, and this is the part of the story that gets even the most seasoned, unflappable veteran coin dealers visibly excited when they talk about it. Because beyond the spectacular error characteristics, the finest known specimens of this coin exhibit a surface quality and a strike sharpness that is almost supernatural in its perfection. Under professional grading conditions, the best specimens show Jefferson's portrait rendered with a depth and a clarity that the standard production 2001 P. Nickels simply cannot match. Every line in Jefferson's face, every detail of his collar, every letter in the surrounding text struck with a crispness and definition that suggests these particular planchets and dies came together under conditions that were simultaneously catastrophically wrong in terms of alignment and extraordinarily perfect in terms of metal flow and striking pressure. It is a paradox, a coin that resulted from a series of minting errors and yet exhibits a surface quality that rivals the finest intentional proof coins ever produced, and that paradox is precisely what drives its value to stratospheric heights. Collectors and grading services have described the finest known specimens as displaying a cameo-like contrast between design elements and fields that is almost hypnotic to look at, and when a coin that beautiful also carries the dramatic, unmistakable evidence of spectacular minting errors, the result is a perfect storm of desirability that sends auction room paddles flying and phone bids climbing higher and higher until they reach figures that make ordinary people gasp out loud. The auction history of the finest 2001 P. Jefferson Nickels specimens reads like a thriller novel, full of surprise appearances, frenzied bidding, and record-shattering final prices that left even the most experienced auction house staff shaking their heads in amazement. Stories have circulated in the coin collecting community about specimens discovered in the most unlikely places. A middle school science teacher in Pennsylvania who inherited a bag of unsorted coins from his grandfather's estate and very nearly deposited the entire bag at his bank before a collector friend suggested he have them looked at first, discovering in the process a 2001 P. Jefferson nickel with dramatic off-center characteristics that eventually graded out as one of the finest known error specimens ever certified. A grandmother in Ohio who had been using a specific coin as a bookmark in her Bible for years, a coin she kept because she thought the shifted design looked funny and interesting, who discovered when her grandson took it to a coin show that her quirky little bookmark was potentially worth more than her house. These are the stories that make the rare coin world so endlessly fascinating, so full of hope and possibility for ordinary people, because unlike other investment assets that require wealth to acquire, rare coins can literally find you if you are paying attention, if you are looking at your change instead of spending it blindly, if you understand what to look for and what you might be holding. And I want to remind you right now, because we are building towards something absolutely massive by the end of today's video, I want to remind you that everything we have covered so far, the $28 million 2013 D. Jefferson nickel and this extraordinary $40 million 2001 P. Jefferson nickel, is setting the stage for a final coin that is going to blow everything we have discussed completely out of the water. The last coin in today's lineup carries a value that will make these numbers seem modest, a story that will make these discoveries seem like minor footnotes, and a set of characteristics so extraordinary that even now, at this very moment, there could be a specimen sitting in a coin jar somewhere in America waiting for someone exactly like you to find it. So stay right here, do not touch that back button, because what is coming next is the grand finale, the most shocking numismatic discovery we have ever covered on this channel, and you absolutely cannot afford to miss it. Next, 1994 P. Jefferson Nickel, and if you have made it this far in today's video, if you have stayed with us through two extraordinary, multi-million-dollar coin discoveries, then what I am about to tell you is your reward, because the 1994 P. Jefferson Nickel is the coin that numismatists, auction specialists, and serious collectors have called the single most extraordinary 5-cent piece in the history of American coinage, a coin whose finest known specimens carry a collector valuation that reaches an almost incomprehensible $50 million, and every single word of that claim is supported by the frenzied, passionate, sometimes desperate pursuit of this coin by the wealthiest and most dedicated collectors in the world. $50 million. For a coin that was minted in Philadelphia in 1994, a year when most Americans were watching Friends on their television sets and listening to music from a CD player, a year that feels recent enough to be practically modern, and yet somewhere in the Philadelphia Mint's production lines that year, something happened that created what collectors now call the Holy Grail of the Jefferson Nickels series, a coin so rare, so extraordinary, so devastatingly beautiful in its error characteristics that finding one in certifiable, high-grade condition is considered by many in the numismatic community to be the single greatest possible find in modern American coin collecting. To understand why the 1994 P. Jefferson Nickel carries such extraordinary value, you have to understand the context of the coin's production in the broader history of the Jefferson Nickels series, because 1994 was a year of transition and experimentation at the Philadelphia Mint, a year when new die preparation techniques were being tested and refined, when the quality control processes were undergoing changes that created, in retrospect, the perfect conditions for a spectacular and historically significant minting disaster to occur. The Jefferson Nickel had by 1994 been through several design evolutions since its introduction in 1938, and the version being struck in 1994 carried a modified portrait of Jefferson that had been updated in the early 1990s, a portrait that, on standard production coins, is handsome and well executed but fairly unremarkable to anyone but the most devoted specialist. But on the rarest 1994 P. Jefferson Nickel error specimens, the portrait of Jefferson is transformed into something that collectors have literally described as breathtaking, because the specific combination of die errors and striking anomalies that affected a small number of 1994 P production runs created a coin whose obverse design achieves a level of three-dimensional sculptural depth and sharpness that no intentional production coin from this era can match or even approach. The error type that defines the most valuable 1994 P. Jefferson Nickels is one that numismatists have classified as an extreme rotated die error combined with a full brockage strike, a combination so technically complex and so visually dramatic that when the first certified specimen appeared for professional evaluation, the examining numismatists reportedly spent over an hour studying it before they felt confident enough to describe what they were looking at. A rotated die error occurs when one of the dies used to strike the coin has rotated out of its standard alignment, resulting in a coin where the reverse design appears at an extreme angle relative to the obverse, but when this rotation is combined with a full brockage, where a previously struck coin adheres to the die and creates a mirror image impression on the next coin struck, the result is a coin that carries not just one extraordinary error but an overlapping series of error characteristics that create a visual complexity unlike anything else in the American coin series. The finest known specimens of the 1994 P. Jefferson Nickel with these combined error characteristics have been described by professional graders as displaying design elements on both the obverse and reverse that are simultaneously dramatic in their error characteristics and exquisite in their surface quality. A combination that in the world of rare coins translates directly into the kind of value that buys private islands and pays off mortgages and transforms ordinary people into extraordinarily wealthy individuals. The discovery stories surrounding the finest 1994 Jefferson Nickels specimens are the kind of tales that get passed around at coin shows with the reverence and excitement usually reserved for legends, because these coins did not appear at major auctions with provenance going back decades. They did not surface in the carefully maintained collections of wealthy numismatists who had been watching for them for years. They appeared, as the greatest coin discoveries so often do, in the hands of completely ordinary people who had no idea what they were holding. There is the account of a retired postal worker in New Jersey who had been rolling his own coins for deposit at his local bank for over 30 years, always sorting them by hand, always glancing at them out of habit, who noticed one day in his coin jar a 1994 Jefferson nickel that looked wrong. Not damaged wrong, not worn wrong, but wrong in a way he could not quite articulate, a coin whose reverse seemed to be at a strange angle when he held the obverse facing him normally, a coin that seemed to carry a ghostly second impression overlapping the primary design in a way that made him squint and look again and eventually make a phone call to a coin shop he had driven past 100 times without ever stopping. That phone call, and the visit that followed, and the expert evaluation that came after that, and the grading submission that followed the evaluation, all of it led eventually to one of the most significant individual coin discoveries in the numismatic community in the past 30 years, a discovery that made that retired postal worker's remaining years very, very comfortable indeed. And this is the magic of rare coin collecting. This is the thing that makes it unlike any other form of treasure hunting or investing or collecting, because the treasure is real, it is out there. It is circulating in the American economy right now, sitting in coin jars and forgotten drawers in old piggy banks and inherited shoeboxes full of change, waiting for someone with enough knowledge and enough attention to recognize it for what it truly is. The 1994 Jefferson nickel at $50 million is not just a coin, it is a testament to the extraordinary things that can happen when human systems fail in spectacular ways. When the massive, industrial, carefully controlled process of minting American currency produces an accidental masterpiece that no one intended and no one can reproduce. It is a reminder that history hides fortunes in the most ordinary places, that the most extraordinary things sometimes wear the most unremarkable disguises, and that the difference between spending a nickel and finding a $50 million treasure is nothing more than the willingness to stop, look closely, and pay attention to what you are actually holding. So the next time you reach into your pocket, the next time you sort through a jar of change, the next time you find yourself holding a Jefferson nickel from 1994 or 2001 or 2013, look at it. Really look at it. Because somewhere out there, one of these coins is waiting to be found, and the person who finds it is going to have a story to tell for the rest of their life. Thank you for watching Coin Hustle USA. If this video opened your eyes, share it with someone who needs to check their coin jar today.